Getting ready to go down to a cattle lot with apparently some feed. And that is a John Deere right there. That is on the back there, what we call a dually, as far as the two tires being on both sides are quite big. Oh hell, I was hoping to get that radio off. They may block it on Facebook. So, this is Michael Vanderpool, and I'm in Saiine County, Missouri. And this is actually first time out today. I'm actually going to reach one of the cattle lots. This is a family up here on the John Deere. It's dualies. Those are two tires on each side, so they're called dualies here. But that is a John Deere tractor. This is outside of Marshall, Missouri, Saiine County, and waiting on to see if the forecast about this another snowstorm is going to come to pass or not this weekend. It's Friday, and anyway, here in a bit we should be seeing some of the cattle. Hopefully we won't be seeing any snow over this weekend, but we'll see about that. We've already got it arranged where if that happens, I'm going to get a ride in. I'm not going to bring out the other truck. I would just come out here, and it's too small for this kind of roads. If the snowstorm hits that has been predicted, those predictions may change though, so let's see. I read about Chicago. Chicago is going to get 2 snowstorms in the article that I read. It's expected this weekend, so I don't know, let's see. So now we're on the way out to the cattle lot, and this is the area that my grandparents and uncles grew up in. My mother also grew up in. Looks like somebody's coming over on a utility vehicle coming up the road. We're nearing crossing of Salt Fork Creek. Yeah, there's somebody out on the utility vehicle. Another John Deere. Railroad crossing. There's 2 railroads that cross through this area right near each other within a mile or less, and every weekend this is the kind of place where spent with grandparents a lot of the times, and uncles, cousins sometimes over the years, even when living in Blue Springs, Missouri, or the greater Kansas City metropolitan area. So I had a childhood and teenage years of both rural weekend visits now and then out here, but all the teen years after age 13 on up to age 20 in Kansas City, with just a few weekends, maybe we'd be lucky one time in a month to make it back down to here. So basically I grew up in reality a city kid, but spent quite a few years here in the nursing care business, and Missouri Valley College for a year and a half, Central Missouri University, which back then was Central Missouri State University, and so on. There's a lot of cattle over there at that farm. That's, I don't know whose farm that is, but in any case. Okay, so, and then MU for a semester and a summer semester, fall semester. Then over at Johnson County Community College, study entrepreneurship for a year. And that's when I headed over to CMU or CMSU after that, Warrensburg. So anyway, this is mid-Missouri. The governor, the new governor, I've understood was in the cattle business, or is in the cattle business. I don't know if he's still in the cattle business or not, but I've read that he got his wealth in the cattle business. The reason I mention that is because of the fact that a lot of friends are living in other countries, and in some countries, you know, they look at the people that live outside the city as being, you know, people that deal with livestock or agriculture or growing things in their countries as being in a different situation. Here it takes quite a bit of capital to, like these cornfields, to take care of all that, this tractor and so on. So it's quite a different situation. That's the reason why I mention it, because I've got quite a foreign audience, and I know that from my web analytics and from the different countries that show and that are watching my videos from around the world. So here in the US, it takes quite a lot of work, investment in capital to make farming or livestock agricultural operations profitable. So in fact, there are some years, of course, when for some folks there's no profit, but at the same time it's quite a different economy than in some of the other countries that I've spent time in as a world traveler, expat style, and also tourist style. So anyway, that's why I mentioned that. It's not for other reasons. But this is a state that's big on agriculture, and obviously the governor of the state of Missouri right now is an example of somebody who had great success in what family's doing right now. So anyway, that's and of course they've been involved with this all their life, so it's kind of an interesting history in the family that I grew up around, and so I'm glad. I wouldn't have it any other way. I'm glad that I grew up in this city, and I'm also glad that I grew up part of my life here. So happy about that. So anyway, I hope that explains a little bit more. Here in a few moments, we'll be over at one of the cattle lots, and we'll open the gate and make sure that I'm learning what's going on with this and help out a bit before I move on to other projects. Well, there's the cows I was talking about. And I'm holding electric fence. Big bale of hay. Yeah. Well, I've got the seatbelt sign. It'll be difficult to get around that. So Now we're headed over to the other place. It did 2 different feedlots. That last feedlot also had goats. Now we're headed back where we came from, and there's another feedlot over there. So then we'll be done for this evening. It's the Missouri woods. I wish I would have got that photo back here. Maybe I'll be able to get something here. It's one of the little creeks. It was pretty earlier in the light. And you can see back in there, a little creek. When I was out a little ways from here at my location where I was filming, there was coyotes, and it sounded like on one side of the road they were, you know, calling out, and then the other ones howling, barking. And on the other side of the road there were at least 1 or 2, it sounded like. So this is interesting when you've got coyotes on up on in one area of the forest or the woods, and then on the other side of the road in another area of the forest or woods completely separate from that by the road and by some distance and land, that you know, it's like they're talking to each other. So anyway, that's a lot of wildlife out here. My brother was very fortunate this year to just go right out very start of the deer season and get a good hunt on. He got a deer within the first, I think the first day, if not the second day. So he'll have a lot with that. There's a cornfield here, at least that's what was planted this year, that's obvious. John Deere in the country of Georgia. I read on the U.S. Embassy website, Tbilisi, that the U.S. Army, I believe it's U.S. Army, Europe maybe, gave a huge John Deere. This is a John Deere tractor in front of us that my family owns. And anyway, the U.S. Army Europe, according to the U.S. Embassy News website out of Tbilisi in the country of Georgia, gave a huge John Deere heavy equipment to a municipality, a city over there in Georgia somewhere. So that was interesting. We'll be crossing Salt Fork Creek up here again at some point, I think, or the railroad tracks. I think it'll be the railroad tracks. There's, as I was speaking about in an earlier video, I'll plan to post these to Facebook, but I don't know about YouTube. It'll depend. If I had the radio on that first clip, I won't be able to post it because Facebook will likely censor it, because it was some music playing out of the radio, and if it's, you know, some issue with that, I just think that Facebook has the technology now that it's canceled it. The video won't work. So that's why I've got the radio off now, and this is a nice little snowman. Oh, and a couple of German shepherds there, I think. At least that one is for sure. Boy, they're on guard too. Anyway, it's a nice place. Not far from here is Arrow Rock, Missouri. That is the location of Mark Twain's, some of his stories on the Missouri River about Tom Sawyer and so on. So there's actually some historical monument there, notating that and pointing that out. When I had visited Russia in Kislovodsk, which is kind of up beyond the North Caucasus Mountains, and Georgia's kind of in the South Caucasus Mountains, May of 2005, a former Navy medic on a Russian naval warship, greeted me with open arms, and I'm not exaggerating. He gave me a huge hug and welcomed me to Kislovodsk. At that time, he was in kind of more or less in his retirement. He still was, a bit of a watchmaker. He had a jewelry shop, a small place where he repaired watches there, but he was a medic on this Russian naval ship, and he gave me this huge hug. And I was with Yulia at the time. At that time, she was just my interpreter. And there was some people some Russian girls that we had stopped and had wine with. We had wine with a Russian family, or an actual meal, the Russian family there at a restaurant a night or so before that. But this former Russian Navy medic welcomed me with open arms, gave me a big hug. He talked about, he had a letter that he thought that I could somehow deliver to the estates or the relatives of Mark Twain, the famous writer, about the stories involving Tom Sawyer and so on. But Ararock, I explained to him, is just about 9 miles straight. If you get a map out, it's about 9 miles straight from Marshall, Missouri, and right now I'm about, I don't know, maybe about 5 miles outside of Marshall, Missouri, here in Saiine County. And so it was a really fantastic experience. And this guy had tears in his eyes because he never thought that he would meet someone so geographically close to the author. One of his favorite authors is Mark Twain. Russians typically have known to love to read, very well read. They love to read a lot of books. That's something that I regret that here in America, maybe some of that has been lost a bit in terms of maybe in favor of electronic versions of this or that, text or books or whatever. But in any case, regardless of all these noticeable comparisons, he just loved the fact that I was so close to Ararock, Missouri, which was the actual location of some of the stories about Tom Sawyer and that actually Mark Twain had wrote about. So I'll never forget that. I mean, I was really welcomed very well in Kislovodsk. In fact, there was a Russian military officer in full uniform there, and it started out where he was staring over there, and I went over there directly and sat down at their table, and the guy said, "Don't you know that he hates Americans?" I said, "Yeah, I know, but he's never probably met or spent time with one." And we ended up, he went over to the bar immediately while his friend was telling me that. And he was kind of trying to win the favor of a couple of women that he was at the table they had danced with. And so he'd come back with steak and maybe it was something like an offer of another beer. And we ended up, there was some dancing there on the dance floor, and I was with Yulia then, and we had been at another table with some other Russian couple, a businessman and his wife, and I ended up spending a couple hours there, having a party, so to speak, or not having a party, but celebrating life, just enjoying the night out there in Kislovodsk with a Russian, what was probably a Russian officer, or definitely a Russian military man. He was in uniform. So we had a good night together. We had, a kind of camaraderie there, and it was just as a tourist. I was actually coming over from Kiev. I'd been there for maybe maximum a week, 5 to 7 days, maybe, if that. I mainly was curious about checking out Kislovodsk. I got some sports massage there because I had a problem with my knee at the time. And I was actually wanting to check that area out because Julian Lee, the locational astrologer, who was actually originally from Iowa, but I think later living in California, or maybe, I don't know if he moved to Oregon or Washington. But in any case, he told me that locational astrology and using a relocated chart and his methods and techniques, he pointed out the area between, you know, like Trabzon or Batumi, all the way down to Tbilisi, all the way up to, you know, what would be near, well, Kislovodsk. That triangle, basically, he pointed out that triangle would be one of the best places on earth for me to live, as far as what goals or objectives I told him I wanted in terms of the energy from an astrological, you know, an astrocartography or an astrological relocated chart, which is one of his techniques that he was using in his locational astrology work. And so Julian Lee is just really fantastic. I'll tell you that I could have never have imagined half the things that he had said and predicted for that location. But years later, I just am pretty mind blown about the work of Julian Lee, locational astrologer. But yeah, in Kislovodsk, it's very known for the sanitariums, the health resorts. It was a nice, very, you know, kind of pure mountain air kind of community, the kind of very tourist place in a very, you know, pleasant way. The downtown wasn't big, but it was very accommodating. They had a brand new Kodak photo development processing shop there, and the nature there was very healthy, and the air was pure and clean. That's a place that was a favorite of former Russian president. I'm trying to remember his name now, but I'm trying to keep my mind on a couple of other things here as we make this drive over to this other cattle lot. But in any case, it wasn't Brezhnev, but it was maybe the other guy after that. But in any case, that was his favorite place to visit, was there in Kislovodsk, and I could understand why. So a lot of tourists come there, especially for the health resorts and to have a rest, and it was a really nice experience. But like I said, I had a problem with my knee, and that was another reason besides the, you know, checking out that area that was recommended to me by Julian Lee on the astrology, which actually got his research finally when I was already in Kiev in about, I think it was about April or May of 2005. So it was like fantastic. It's like, whoa, he did this research. I'm already right near there where this triangle where he recommended in terms of locational astrology. Anyway, I'm going to stop the video now because we're getting ready to come up on another gate, and I'll need to get out and get this going so we can get these cattle fed. He's going to... Okay, so here we go.